No, you have not gone back in time to the mid 90s. I wish. We are in Japan, where Tower Records is still a thing. While Tower Records in America went belly up in the early 2000s, right before then, they sold the Japanese brands. So it's still kicking here in Tokyo, and boys that ever with this massive 7-floor Tower Records. It's like heaven for me. I usually go here, well, every week or so just to look around. Even if I don't buy anything, just walking in here makes me happy. I'm going to take you on a floor-by-floor tour as much as I can, starting out with the first floor here, which is, as you can tell, mostly Japanese and some K-pop, and mostly, if not entirely, new releases. To be honest, I really don't spend that much time here. Not a big Blackpink fan, as you can probably guess, and it has stuff like these kind of, not so great turntables, things like that. It's very mainstream. That's not a bad thing, but it is very mainstream, and it's just not my speed. So let's head on over to the elevators and see what else this store has to offer. As I said before, it is 7 stories of music, and we're going to go straight to the top and see James Brown. Godfather, how you doing? Let's look around here, see what we have up at the top with a variety of genres up here. We got a lot of R&B and soul and hip-hop. You got a big Michael Jackson feature. Yeah, Prince, also Aretha Franklin, and next to her, Miles Davis. I don't know why he's in katakana and the rest of them are not. And then around the corner, you have a kind of like a greatest hits section of like some compilations and things like that. Jazz, big up here. You got Pat Metheny. I never knew how to say that. Pat, that guy. And some Japanese hip hop, and I usually slag on that, but Nujabes, good beats. Kind of like chill beats, good stuff there. They got this nice wall of vinyl. That's kind of more of a teaser for what you're going to see on the floor below, although there is some good stuff there. Some Claus Nomi, that's good. And other kind of Japanese stuff that's worth listening to. A lot of, as you can see from that sign, ambient electronica. This is where you find more avant-garde electronic music. Really hard to explain, like even further away than like Aphex Twin and stuff. Post-classical. This is like greatest hits long sellers. That's what that says in Japanese. And then more ambient and electronic and avant-garde. I'm not familiar with this genre. Read the signs. That should give you a better idea than I can. Although Tomita, I do know Tomita. That's some good album. That is Japanese contemporary music, kind of like contemporary classical. Not really my area. And next to it, you have rakugo, which is kind of like a Japanese traditional stand-up or storytelling. You won't find that anywhere else. You'll find this other places, soundtracks, but this has weird soundtrack section. You want the Knowing on CD? How about Dante's Peak Deluxe Edition? Always? I don't even know. So you're going to get these like collector's edition, like La La Land, that's a label, soundtracks that you usually can't buy in stores, but they have them here. So no matter how obscure the movie, trust me, if it has a complete score, some boutique soundtrack label has reissued it on CD, like Lionheart, and you can buy it, and you can probably buy it here. This is where I got my dope-ass 3 CD Howard the Duck soundtrack. And I also bought that amazing Taking a Pill in 1, 2, 3 soundtrack here. Awesome soundtrack selection. But then there's jazz. You got, your mainstays, your Chick Corea, Charlie Parker, Bill Evans. And I'm going to be really honest. I know nothing about jazz other than, these names you'll see here. And that's why I'm showing them. Huge jazz selection, though. Just nonstop. I'm probably about a third of the floor, if not more, just full of it. You got fusion. Again, sorry, not a fan, but if you are, hey, there you go. This goes on for miles and miles. And Miles Davis, sorry, that was a bad jazz joke. Then the Japanese jazz. I like Japanese jazz actually more than Western jazz. There's a big reason why. You want to get your Loop in the Third soundtracks, you come to the jazz floor. Also, some other good jazz artists up here like Fukamushi Jun and Cassiopeia, again, mentioned in a previous video. So Japanese jazz tends to be a bit funkier. I know it's kind of a strange thing to think of, but I dig it. So, pick some up if you hear sometime. It's good stuff. Moving on to the kind of soul, R&B, and dance. You get a lot of stuff like, Curtis Mayfield. Newer stuff too to see, but mostly classic stuff here or stuff from the 90s, although Japan freaking loves Bruno Mars. You have no idea. And Aretha Franklin, obviously. So it's good for that kind of stuff here. The more interesting part of their soul and R&B section is this wall. It kind of has more obscure things. I don't know why it's more popular here. You got the spinners, which you don't really see a lot in the States, and then cool compilations like this. Like here is a compilation of the band Sun. Yeah, sure, why not? And then this awesome like greatest hits or compilation of breaks. You get the Mexican and a lot of other good old school breakdancing jams that you can deck out the cardboard in the B box and just go to town with. I almost bought that, but I'm trying to cut back. And then other artists like that over here. Let's go back into the racks though and get another look of what you see in this type of section. Again, mostly mainstream artists, mostly big artists, but Japanese editions sometimes have stuff you can't find, and then you get massive things like this. Here's all the prints. Like, yo, it's a lot of prints. And then again, all Michael Jackson. I'll just leave it at that. But if you want Michael Jackson, you can find it here. Trust me, they have a ton. There's so much music like this. I could spend hours in here. And hey, guess what I have? The hip-hop selection it's lesser, I'll be honest. I'm not a huge hip-hop guy. But again, this is kind of the big stuff, the mainstream stuff, and the old school classics. You're not going to get, an obscure mixtape here. You're not going to get any obscure country either. That's the entire country section. This is the entire blues section. Not everything's big in Japan. What can I tell you? Electronic music, though, big in Japan. Here's a nice little display for Yoshinori Tsunohara's Love Beat. I think that's the 10th anniversary of that record. Really good record. I recommend that one. And they have a good club music scene here. I wouldn't call Aphex Twin club music, but I don't work here, so I'm not gonna judge. But this is stocked often with new releases, as you can tell, and bestsellers, usually refreshed quite a bit. It's a good place where I go to pick up good dance music. I don't pick up world music that often, but if I did, I'd come here because, as you can tell, there's a lot of it. But most of this floor, the parts that aren't jazz are usually classical. I would say a third of the floor is jazz, like I said earlier, and then you got a third of it classical, and then a third the rest. Like this whole wall, all that's all classical. This whole shelf here, all classical. There's like 8 more rows of this. It's just classical. Very well organized, as everything in every good Japanese record store is. Very easy to find, even if you don't speak the language. And like the staff here is great, so if you're confused, they can help you too. Not a lot of vinyl up here, but a ton of SACDs. I thought that format had died. What do I know? I guess it lives on in classical. There's a whole wall of them. Really quite intense, to be honest. But I know you didn't come here to look at SACD classical music, so let's go down a floor. 6th floor, grand opening of Tower Vinyl. Oh, it's so pretty. This was actually originally in the Shinjuku location, but just a couple weeks before I shot this, they closed that up and moved Tower Vinyl to Shibuya, and I would say it's probably a move for the better. It's a little more cramped than the Shinjuku location was, but it's very well organized, very easy to find stuff, and everything is separated very well. Everything with the black kind of plastic cards, that's new. So what you're looking at now is new vinyl. And it's separated really well between the genres, so you don't get confused. They got the rock and the R&B and the rap and the soundtracks and the new age and the jazz all separated, so it's super easy to find and super easy to sort through, not too packed either. They also have the nice little wall of the high-priced, high-demand, you must be high to buy it because it costs a freaking fortune records. I never look at these because I'll buy them and I shouldn't do that. Good selection of J-pop here, and I would say it is a selection of J-pop tailored for foreigners because there's a ton of city pop. Here's your Taiko Anuki. So if you're on YouTube, and hey, you are right now, you know who that is probably. And around there, you also have the Junko Ohashi, a lot of big city pop artists, I guess is the best way to call them, right? The older 80s idols that people have latched onto on YouTube. The big one here, Maria Takeuchi. If you notice, they have the Romanji. A lot of stores don't do that. So when you go to like some smaller stores, you have to ask for help because unless you can read the kanji, here you can actually see the names, which is really great. I'm not a huge fan of that, but Yukio Takahashi, he's my man. He was in YMO. These albums are great. That album is great. That album's less great. That album's fantastic. Wild and Moody. awesome record. Pick it up if you ever hear. The live album's very good too. Also, another very good record. Love me, Yukihiro Takahashi, so much. I also like this artist here, Ippo, and I don't see a lot of people mention her as much. Her stuff's kind of techno-y, like synth poppy. That album's great. The high touch, high tech. Dig that one. Also dig this one, but let's be real, that's expensive. You know what's not expensive? These Yano Akiko albums behind her. Those are good. Buy those. They're really good. Also really good over here is Raji. She worked with YMO quite a bit. I love her early records. They have a game music lesson here, but this is only new game music. Don't buy this. I mean, I love this still, but don't buy. You can buy this online. It'll be cheaper. Let's go check out the used stuff to give you a good idea of what's here on a daily basis and the prices. As you can see, kind of all over the place of prices. You got your dirt cheap records and stuff that's a little more expensive. I almost bought that, but I think I have that B-side, so I'll put that one back. Sorry, Tom Petty. Some good old stuff here, and you can kind of get a sense of what happened recently by what shows up. Like recently, a lot of Grace Slick and kind of 60s and early 70s stuff kind of came in there. So I guess somebody unloaded their Woodstock adjacent albums. But yeah, good prices on a lot of these. I think cheaper than you'd find online many of the times, and the conditions are almost always fantastic. Over in the alternative section, I don't know what the hell that is. We got your Limp Bizkit and Crowded House, same thing. Biohazard, I used to own that exact same single. There you go, The Breeder's Pod, that's a great album. And other kind of assorted stuff here. I really spent a lot of time in this section. I have always liked Japan's selections of alternative and indie. I think it's well curated and kind of matches my interests, so I'm maybe a little bit selfish there. Other good stuff here. PJ Harvey, that's a pricey one. That's a rare one. Ministry, less pricey, less rare. Atari Teenage Riot, another one. Big in Japan. Sure, why not? New Wave and Post-Punk. Who's depressed and has synthesizers? I do. I hate the Swans, though. Tones on Tail, Wall of Voodoo. Great record. Ben Folds 5, early one there. Pricey, some Gomez. Yellow, oh yeah. Almost grabbed that. Two Boy Army, fantastic record. I have like 3 copies of that one. Ministry's first real album, that's a good one. Oh, that's a bad record by Gary Newman. Don't buy that. You might think these are a little pricey, but trust me, these are fair prices here in Japan. And as I said before, the condition of these records is almost always fantastic. If you see a B grade Japanese record, it's usually an A grade in America or higher. And then up above, they have the more marquee stuff. You got your Clash, your New York Dolls, your Wire, your New Order, stuff like that. Y'all like anime? You're in luck. This store has a ton of anime soundtracks. All of them are very cheap because I honestly think most people in Japan don't really care about anime soundtracks anymore. But the non-anime soundtrack section is interesting here. A lot of more unique stuff here, like the FX soundtrack, that Odessa File soundtrack. I haven't seen those in a lot of other stores, and I go to a lot of soundtrack sections. So some odder ones here that I thought were a little bit interesting, worth looking through if you ever get a chance to come here. Cool old Jackie Chan one. And behind that, there was some more anime soundtracks, and I wanted to show that off because up here, there is a game music soundtrack. That is the Symphonic Dragon Quests. A quick reminder, if you're looking for game music in Japan, go to the anime music section because that's what it usually is. Over here, you have your funk and your R&B and your soul. And then back here in the corner, these are all 12-inch singles, usually pretty cheap. Some are pricey, but most of them below $10 a pop. I like going through these because you get those 12-inch single exclusive tracks and dope shit like this. I almost bought that, but that was like 2,000 yen and I don't need it just for the cover. But yeah, good stuff here if you're a DJ or if you just, got a disco kick, man. You can find a lot of great stuff in their 12-inch singles section for sure, without a doubt. But let's go look around what else they have here. What up, Beastie Boys? Hello, Nasty. Hello, Led Zeppelin. I'm not a huge Zeppelin collector, but I wanted to show this off just so you get an idea of what's here and the prices. You can freeze frame and take a look. Weird bootleg. I wouldn't buy that. But my point of showing this is that to show the kind of stuff you'll find here. You're not going to see like the super rare, like the turquoise cover Led Zeppelin 1, but still good stuff, for sure. Same thing of like just the metal section. Let's take a quick look through here, a random letter. I just wanted to point it out. what you can find. I loved that cover. Almost bought it for the cover. It's like Roger Dean on heavy metal. That cover, not so good. But yeah, good variety of all kinds of metal. You got 70s, 80s Monster Magnet. Hell yeah. You got good Meatloaf. You got bad Meatloaf. More Montrose. That is Mr. Big. Japan loves Mr. Big. That's more Mr. Big there. Japan really loves Mr. Big. I don't know why. It's a thing. Hey, Lizzie Borden, cool. Some rare Bowie. I had that Diamond Dogs with that fan club picture. I sold it for nothing, and I'm sad. Here's the obligatory jazz pan. Again, my disclaimer of I know nothing about jazz, but there are a lot of jazz fans out there who want to know what jazz is here, so you jazz fans can use your jazz hands and freeze frame to take a closer look at the stuff they have here. But let's move on over to the CDs, because this floor is still half CDs, and it's a great selection. Here's the new release display, and I wanted to showcase this because I wanted to show how often they change it, because here's the exact same section the following week. A lot is different. They cycle through this stuff pretty quick. So for me, it's a great way to discover new music. Here's the back wall too. New indie rock, new alternative rock, new, for lack of a better word, Stereo Gum and Pitchfork adjacent stuff. Into Prague, there's some unique Japanese-only things. These MQA CDs for King Crimson, pretty sure are only available in Japan. A lot of people swear by the sound quality of those. I'm not that familiar. I am familiar with Pink Floyd, though, and this huge Adam Hart Mother deluxe edition that came with a Blu-ray featuring some super vintage old footage of them playing in Japan. It was pretty great. Other Japan-only stuff. Here are reproductions of Rolling Stones singles on CD, on SHM CD. It's supposed to sound better. I don't think it does. They're expensive. This is about $20 for 2 songs, but I guess this is really tailored for the crazy collector's market. Another crazy collector's thing here, this Santana album, I think it's the quad mix on SACD. I don't think that has a huge market, but people who want it probably really, really want it. A lot of other Japan-only stuff. Mr. Big, again, I told you, they're big in Japan. I wasn't lying. White Stripes, recent re-releases that are, I think, Japan-only exclusives with some bonus tracks on them. I almost snagged these, but I'm 99% sure I have all these bonus tracks. And then here's a weird new reissue campaign of stuff from the late 70s to mid-80s. I don't think these are really new, in terms of reissue. I think they're just repackaged, but a lot of these had bonus tracks. I picked up the Soft Shell one and those Ultravox ones down there one time. And then next to that, the Alive the Live section. These are all bootlegs, but in Japan, they're legal. I don't know. It's strange to me. I wouldn't buy them. Also strange to me is Pied Piper House. This is like a record store in the record store with a very specific aesthetic, as you can see here. Very 50s to 70s, I guess, a album-oriented rock, or just folk and very, there's a whole wall of sound section there, Ronnie, you go there. And they're going full of vibe, and they kind of nail it. It's not really my scene, and I don't think anything here is super rare or super hard to find, but it's very well curated. So if this is the kind of stuff that you're into, it's a great place for it. Some vintage shirts. These are not retro, those are vintage. I didn't look at those because they're expensive, and they won't fit me. So why should I bother? Oh, man, I wish that Smashing Pumpkins shirt fit me, though, because I love the Smashing Pumpkins, even though Billy's terrible. Let's look at some tapes. These are used tapes. This is a relatively new thing to Tower 2. I'm glad they have them, but I'm glad it's only a really small part. Suzanne Vega on tape. Yeah, $2. That seems about fair. Monica. Is that pricier? Yeah, about $10. I guess that's fair. I have no idea what that is. You can Google it. I have no idea if that price is fair. My point in showing that is that this is a diverse selection of tapes. Whether you want some lo-fi stuff or U2's Joshua Tree for about $15 US. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Yes. No, not that one. Anime on tape. Cheap. Yay. And then the booze. You can buy booze at Tower Records. I heard good things about the Foo Fighters sake. I can tell you right now, do not buy any Motorhead liquor. Just trust me on that. It was bad. Not a lot of hi-fi here. Actually, it was mostly those bad briefcase turntables, but they have a good selection of needles if you have a real turntable. A lot of these you can buy in the States, but some you can't. This brand over here, this is a Japanese-only brand, Taruya, I believe the name is. They're good needles. I've used them before, but let's go down the floor to K-pop. Okay, that's the K-pop. Let's go down and look at anime now instead. Here's the anime. Yay, anime. A lot of JoJo. I didn't know JoJo had so many soundtracks. You learn something new every day. This is a strange floor. It's like, it's mostly anime, but then there's a lot of idols, and I think a lot of the idols, maybe they have songs in anime, or they have some relation to an anime, or something like that, but it's really beyond my comprehension. I wish I could tell you more about it, and my boyfriend also, even though he's Japanese, he doesn't have a clue. A lot of back here is Johnny's. Johnny's are idols from a Japanese company called Johnny's. They're terrible. I'm not going to talk about them. Speaking of terrible, there's AKB. Let's move on to game music, something I know much more about. I love game music. I buy a lot of game music. I own that Animal Crossing soundtrack. Yes, the one that cost 11,000 yen. But I don't buy a lot of game music at Tower Records, and here's why. As you can tell, most of it is Square Enix or other RPGs or stuff by Konami I've never heard of. When there is new game music I want, I usually get it online because the online copies might have bonus tracks. Not so much here. Here's an entire Final Fantasy section, though. That's a lot of Final Fantasy, and then other kind of Square Enix stuff, the Nier soundtrack, stuff like that. Not again, it's not my scene. And then on the third floor, the last floor that has music, this is the J-pop floor. The second floor is only a restaurant and like a merch floor, and with COVID going on, I'm not going to the restaurant floor, thank you. But I'm just going to talk over this as you can all get a good look of the kind of stuff you might see on here. I really like this floor. It's really great for discovering new Japanese music because they have so many listening stations. Once COVID's maybe not as serious, I might put on those headphones again, but right now I think I'm going to hold back. One artist I did recognize here that I wanted to shout out was right here, Sketch Show. That is 2/3 of YMO. That's Yukihiro Takahashi and Hiromi Hosono, with occasional Sakamoto joining in. Those are great albums just re-released on CD and vinyl. I think anyone who likes synth pop, electronic music, or glitch should really pick those up. There isn't too much to say about this floor. It's the Japanese music on CD. Very little vinyl here. I think most of the vinyl is up on the other floor with the rest of the vinyl. So I'm just going to let this play as I talk you out. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I want to say that, you know, I appreciate everybody who's watched my record store videos so far. If you have any questions about any record stores, feel free to leave a comment. And, you know, if you have any recommendations about stores you want covered or topics you want covered about stores here in Japan, please let me know. I would love to let everybody know about all the awesome, great, and fantastic stores that are here. But that's going to do it for today. As always, hit those like and subscribe buttons. And if you want more news from Japan and Japanese record stores, be sure to follow me on Twitter at Lost Turntable. Take care.